All right. I'm going to jump into a case study. This is a very interesting case study. I think the open view, right? Shreya and other gentleman who was here in class. Who was that? Shreya and Vishnu, right?
Ooh,
Open store.
Yep, that sounds right.
Open
yep,
store.
open store.
Open store. Okay. We're going to talk about a case study that kind of probably speak to you. I think Vishnu going to mention how do I break up new and returning. The quick answer is you can't. Not the new tools that Maury is represented as in specifically the specific media products that Meta has and PMax has and whatnot probably helps you a little bit, but does not still give you a clean way to understand, estimate all of the media and what's driving for new versus returning customer acquisition. We're going to talk about a case study that speaks to that. Okay. All right. This is called sensitivity analysis. When we do triangulation for one specific channel, let's say Meta, for example, and we don't use advanced attribution techniques like marketing mix modeling, we call it sensitivity analysis. When you bring advanced attribution into it, we call it triangulation, right? Just as a way to like draw some boxes around the different analysis frameworks and techniques we teach in class, okay? So this is called sensitivity analysis. It is the precursor for triangulation. Typically, when we do work for clients, we do it for every channel. We do sensitivity analysis. We stack them up together to create triangulation for the entire portfolio. In this particular case, we're doing sensitivity analysis for one channel. This is Facebook, and this particular brand is a DTC fashion brand, an indie brand. It was founded by a reputed designer herself. Small brand, about less than $2 million in GMV, Shopify sort of a merchant. They tried a little bit of Facebook early on. It didn't really work for them. And all the growth has been through organic social. Designer posts on Instagram, and she drives a ton of sales every time she posts, right? So she is an influencer, and that's kind of how they've grown the brand to this particular point. But they wanted to try paid social, and they wanted to try Facebook and say, well, everybody's making Facebook work. We should be able to make this work as well. But when they ran it, the results didn't pass the smell test, okay? Which is when it came to us to say, dude, I'm not able to understand attribution from Facebook. Kind of smells funny. Can you look at it, right? And so we're going to look at it. The beautiful thing about the reason why this case study is interesting is that clean slate. They haven't done any Facebook, any paid media at all. Everything is organic. It's a small brand. They've only tried one channel. So it gives us a unique way to look at this particular use case of over attribution, new versus returning, and how it impacts measurement is a really beautiful case study for us to look at, right? Okay, so here is the data. So look at this, for example, March, April, May, June. They've spent a small amount of dollars, but 1,500, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, and this is the last click attribution, 7-day click purchases. So when they spent 1,500, they drove 2,300. They spent 3,000, they 5,600. So look at the ROAS numbers here: 1.6, 1.8, 3.4. So they're like, wow, this is so cool. Meta is really working. As we scale into Meta, we're driving another $80,000 in new revenue. Amazing. We should just blow this out. We go from 15,000 to 150,000. We go from being an indie brand to an amazing brand. Boom, we have won, right? Everybody wants these results, right? But until it was here, it was kind of okay. But then as it kind of grew here, they're like, dude, this is kind of looking really weird. I don't know if I believe these results. And they're like, why? Well, because this is too rich. I don't really believe you're driving this much in ROAS. If I drove an additional $80,000 in July, I would know it. I'm not seeing it in the business. And we're like, okay, let's look at the data more closely. So what we did is we brought together new customer orders, new customer gross sales from Shopify. So you can see Jan, Feb, March, April, May, June, July. And it's been sort of a seasonal trend here and like a little pop here, but they're not seeing this big $80,000 jump in the business. Then when you line up Facebook 7-day revenue right next to it, as you can see, the small amount of revenue, you can't tell if it's really growing the business or not. Still can't tell. I'm not quite sure. We're like, wow, clearly not growing. At this point, it's taking more than 100% of the total new customer sales. So Vishnu, to your point, how much of Facebook's order reporting, as last click attribution reporting, is reporting new customer versus their existing customer sales, even though all the exclusions are applied. I know this campaign really well. They applied all their customers list exclusions on it. And it was trafficked in a way it was only meant to target new audiences, not existing customers. But it's all those exclusions are not perfect, right? Everybody knows that. So you still end up picking up a lot of existing customer transactions, even though the media is meant for driving new customer acquisition, right? So when they come to here, it becomes obvious. When they look at the July numbers, it becomes obvious that you're now taking 120% of new customer sales. Clearly, it's an absurd number. And so like, clearly you're just picking up existing customer transactions and reporting that as your performance. And so now you lose faith in all of Facebook, right? You're like, well, I'm not quite sure Facebook's doing anything for me, right? Now, when we looked at it, we're like, wait a second, there is a little bump here, right? When we like look at this, for example, there is kind of an unnatural bump here. So there is clearly some impact. Let's do some sensitivity analysis and see how, let's get a coarse estimate of contribution of Facebook to new customer sales, okay? And so we kind of said, okay, let's go do that. How do you do sensitivity analysis? Here is, we in fact are going to publish templates. I think Shivank might be in class. Shivank's my product manager. He's going to walk you through how to use sensitivity analysis to estimate course contribution of Facebook and PMAX and shopping and whatnot. And here's an example, okay? So let's walk through it. So in this, this is 2 months worth of data, June, July. All of the data is blinded, by the way. This is not real. I mean, actually, we've kept the insights, but we've we've scaled the data, so you can't really back into what the P&L is, but really it tells the story of the insight. So which is kind of what we teach in class. Okay, in this particular case, they drove about $184,000 in total revenue in these 2 months, June, July, $184,000 in total revenue. Out of the $184,000, about $110,000 is new customer revenue, and about $75,000 is existing returning customer revenue, right? This is the breakdown, okay? Roughly 110 to 75,000. This particular period of time, they spent about $25,000 only on Facebook. No other media channel was in play. The overall CAC, new customer acquisition CAC, was $74, and the MER was 4.5, right? These look like great numbers. The average order value was something like $350, $400 or something like that. Pretty expensive product there. Now, $25,000 in total spend. Now we look at the attribution across multiple attribution windows. If you look at the 1-day attribution window for those 2 months, total last click revenue was $100,000. If you look at 1-day view, $6,000. So a lot of click-through traffic here, right? So you can kind of feel like, okay, we're getting a lot of click-through conversions here, so I feel pretty good about it. But when you look at the 7 days, 120, 28 days, 124, so $125,000 is the total 7-day click, 1-day view, which is kind of what they were using to optimize the program, right? This 125,000 compared to the total new customer revenue is 110,000. So it's absurd that you would be driving $125,000 new customer revenue when the total revenue is only $110,000, right? This goes back to the finance metrics I talked about. When you stack up last click over and above, you kind of get more than what the total revenue was. It's kind of a reflection of that concept or that phenomena on this particular use case, right? So the ROAS numbers look really, really strong, but it's not quite sure. So how do you solve for it? There is no perfect solve for it. So what we do is we do some sort of estimation to get a sense for this estimate. And how do we do that is we go to Shopify. Shopify does its own UTM attribution. Okay, they have their own UTM attribution. They collect all the UTM parameters, and they do a really shitty form of UTM attribution. That's actually like really, really bad UTM attribution. But it's something, right? The beautiful thing about this process is that Shopify has near perfect discrimination of new and returning orders, because they obviously are Shopify. They know who bought before because they know the address. They can get new and returning order sort of breakouts with a lot higher, with near perfect precision. Not perfect, but near perfect precision. Okay, but their UTM attribution is pretty poor. Therefore, Facebook is reporting a total of $125,000 in last click revenue, whereas Shopify is only reporting about $5,000 in last click revenue. The sampling rate is very, very small, right? Because of the UTM tracking and breakages and everything like that. But within this $5,000, you can see the new versus returning breakout. You can see that new was 1,800, returning was 3,000. So the new customer ratio, according to UTM, is 38%. Take this 38%, apply to this number, you get $48,000, right? And you apply this $48,000 as the new customer last click revenue, is our estimate of new customer last click revenue. ROAS goes from 5.2 to 2. So it drops significantly to now a ROAS that seems more reasonable. Now, when you apply these benchmark incrementality multipliers, which we will publish as part of class, you take these benchmark multipliers, you get that out of these 48,000, now you get maybe 32% incrementality, which is about 40,000. So like if you take that, you get about $40,000 in new customer revenue. We'll go through the process in another class where I'll walk you through how I calculate this. So $40,000 in advanced attribution revenue, which is your causal estimate, final causal estimate. This $40,000 represents 1.7 ROAS and a 37% course contribution of Facebook. Now, if you go back here, we said, hey, those 30% lift here, maybe not all of it is causal, but we want to kind of understand what it might be. What is that number? What is a course contribution? Before you run any test, before you run a media mix model, it's 37%. So Facebook's driving about 37% of their new business. And now this is something that they can look at that and be like, you know what? I kind of believe that. I can kind of say that, off this big spike here, about 1/3 was the new customer acquisition driven by paid Facebook. Rest of it was organic. And I can kind of I can start with this and say, maybe there's some juice in Facebook. I should do more testing, understand the true causal impact going forward. Okay. Now, if you take this approach, what we call sensitivity analysis for one channel, and if you stack it up across all channels one by one, it's called triangulation. Okay. And we have a template, a triangulation template that we publish as part of class. You guys all will have access to it. Shivank, who's my product manager, done a ton of work on automating the template, making it much more easy to use. Well, easy to use is a strong word, but it's still a pretty complex problem. But making it much more easy to get on. You can now look at all of these channels side by side and be able to compare, both do channel-wise analysis and cross-channel analysis in one place. Okay, we're going to have specific case studies on that. That process.